That I will be at the depth of your considerations at this point, but I felt that it was good for me to stay. My colleagues are in New England already, so I could have enjoyed that trip, but honestly, I feel more reward, a deeper reward if I stay here with you. I was a stewardship director for 12 years. I did it at a local level and at the union level. It was a learning experience for me. It was a growth experience. Thank you very much. I don't pretend that I am an expert in stewardship. Please don't think that. But it's a subject that really has brought to me a lot of satisfaction and a lot of spiritual growth. So before I do that, before we share with you a little bit, and I deeply pray to God that you be fed today. So my purpose is not to teach you anything. Quite frankly, I don't know that I can teach anything to anyone anymore. But I would like to find out if you have any questions so far that you would like to ask me. I don't want to leave the questions for last. I want to have the questions now, because when I leave, I want you to keep what I'm giving you. So if you have any questions that have of treasury importance, I'm here, and I would like to take a few moments to take those now. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for the privilege. As we keep on discussing the moment of time since yesterday, we were emphasizing about counsel on stewardship. And we are trying to encourage different divisions with multiple language. Will the division be able to give us a guidelines or some kind of assistance when it comes to, because the need of the field is because we are working with many language people, and they need the material resource.
You're talking about translating?
Yeah, translation and the course of printing. Will there be any step that can be taken from the side of the General Conference?
Well, I would like to say the White Estate is always open to assisting with the translation of material. Printing and distribution is not their share.
Okay.
But the translation part they probably can help with. So if you're talking about councils on stewardship, if it hasn't been translated before, I think you have a chance. I don't want to say yes because I don't work for the White Estate, but we do put funds in their hands, and they might be able to assist in those languages where the material has not been made available before. Yes, Pastor.
Yeah, one day I took a time to count how many hours and how many lectures I have given last year. It was more than 200 hours or lectures I made. So most of the meetings, as I went to the local field, the audience, they are elderly people. Since my territory and this area is a very much rapidly aging society. And those people who are above than 65 years and up, they are already giving generation, very much faithfully giving generation. They don't need to listen about the stewardship. But the younger generation, the less they participate in returning the tithe. But I have no access to them. And I eagerly want to meet those young people. But the youth ministry directors and children's ministry directors, they already think we are separate department. You are doing yours, and I am doing mine. So there's no access. If we do not educate them as of now, about 10 years from now or 20 years, we lose everything.
Absolutely.
And therefore, I want to strongly appeal to GC leadership. Before I mention that, I should appreciate your wonderful decision to provide the division departmental director's salary and the travel budget. We are so much grateful for that. And then General Conference is investing a lot of money. But as we go to the local field, only one director's effort. And therefore, my request to the General Conference, while you are investing a lot of money, and then I hope you to encourage the division president and officers to help them to some coordination between the other departmental directors. So I want to approach the women's ministry department, how to manage the family economics. And then I want to approach the ASI convention to say, I do not want to be nosy, but
no,
if I
have
just 20 minutes or 1 hour, so
that's a very valid point, and I wish either Marcos or Penny or someone should actually write to me a message on this quickly. And I will be glad to mention it even before annual council ends. Thank you. That's a very important thing. What I have detected is that the people that really need to hear stewardship never stay. Never stay for the stewardship presentation. They don't want to hear about it. They feel they either know already, or if they don't, they are they do not seem to be interested in this aspect of church work. It's interesting how generations change, because when I was growing up, when I became interested in stewardship, I was just young. I was probably 18 years old. And at that time, stewardship actually was I don't know, maybe I was an exception, but I don't think so. It was something that just brought a new light to me. So there's something I would like to say about how you approach this. The best people, and we can only appeal to your leaders. This is a matter that belongs with the division president. It is the division president that has to say to the departments, you need to work together and integrate each other into your efforts. We can speak about that from here, we can say some things, but the truth is, it is at the desk of the division president where these issues are planned and where these activities are put together. That's where, and he is the person that has to say, you need another piece here. You need another element here. Honestly, that's what will make it. What has happened here, and I was a stewardship director in the mission when Paul came and visited me, remember, many years ago. And that was such a revival for me. I never left it. It is something that many of our presidents have not known. This is the same case as the generation of pastors that are coming into the ministry now that have never been in an Adventist school. And you talk to them about Christian education and Christian education and Christian education and going to our colleges for Christian education and developing leadership. They do not come from that model. They do not understand that. It is, you're talking a foreign language to them. I am a product of Adventist education. So when you say Adventist education is crucial for leadership development, I trace back the beginning of my leadership development to the Bible class I had when I was in our school in 8th grade. That's when it clicked for me. But if you have never been there, how do you react? How do you respond? Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you? We are kind of trying to cover, in a way, a vacuum. I would like to also say that one of the problems I see, and one of the reasons why we made the effort to bring back stewardship to the forefront, and you are part of that group, is because for a better part of, I don't know, I would say probably almost 20 years, we didn't have any stewardship voice that we could say is actually sending a message out to the people. And we, and I include myself, as administrators, we're happy with it. So we have no one else to blame. One of the problems you have, Pastor, is the time when you talk to young people is not when they are already graduated and they have their cars and they have their budgets and they live in their own apartments. The time is when they're little children. That's when they learn it. When I taught my daughters to return the tithe, it was when they were little children. And that's what works. We may have to struggle with the generation of millennials that we have. Let's not give up on them. But at the same time, I think we need to go one step beyond to the younger generation, because that needs to be taught so that we no longer have to deal with this. But it is the reality of neglect, and I would admit that is the case. Yes, John.
When I came here about 6 years ago, I went over to GC Sabbath School, and I said, could I get a stewardship slot in the Sabbath School curriculum for kids? They said, no, that's not in our
it's not part of the curriculum.
So I went and did my own thing.
Yeah.
I went over to the seminary, asked the seminary dean, is there a possibility that we could develop a doctor of ministry and stewardship? He said, we don't have any call for that from the field. So that's where we ought to be intersecting.
Yeah.
People, the ministers.
Totally. Agree.
I mean, there are enough of us who have degrees and are educated in the experience. We probably could write out a whole curriculum and program in a day.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't cost the church really anything except our budgets. But we need to take the ivory tower guys up to the top of the ivory tower.
Okay.
And
I think that's another point. Please write it down. Send them to me. See, this is the thing. The difference between a person who is not an executive officer, that is, an officer that is not an executive officer, and an officer that is an executive officer, is that executive officers have designated time when they can talk to the whole audience. You understand the difference?
I got
And I want to take advantage of that and mention
I got a
that. Yes.
couple of other points. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be me, but I would love to talk to the world body about this Sabbath School Quarterly coming up.
Mhm.
But I don't get a chance.
I see.
And and you need 3 days, a minimum of 3 days, so presidents can catch the vision. What
Okay.
Marcus did the other day, a couple of hours, an hour and a half, everybody in here, they're busy thinking to other stuff, doing stuff on their computer, buying airplane tickets and everything. You know, we don't have their attention for them to catch the vision.
We need quality time.
And to catch the passion.
Mhm.
Because, you
Yeah.
know, what do? You just look at the negative side. There's going to be less employees.
Yeah. Let me say this to you folks. I hope you feel that the urgency, and I sense you do, the urgency of for the initiative that we have introduced. I believe in that, John, and I appreciate that. And I believe me, I should include that in my talk. My concern is, again, many of the division presidents we have, union presidents that we have, even conference presidents, not to mention pastors, okay? Many of them have never seen stewardship at work. They have never seen it. And that's a sad thing. But let's not give up. We're not here to give up, okay? We are here to revive and resuscitate and bring back into where it needs to be the message that has been neglected. Now, I want to say something else. Yes, go ahead.
Just one more thing, then I'll be quiet.
Oh, no.
Once we
Listen,
get our stewardship certification, and Benita and I, we've been working on this. It is really good. It partners with ministerial levels of organization.
it would work
How
well.
can we make that required
Mhm.
for stewardship directors at all administrative levels to have? Then that we would know what they know, what they don't know. They would be professionals and experts in the field.
Okay. Let me give you a quick answer. Key person, your division president. If your division president says this is something we will require, it's going to happen. It is so simple.
We've just asked John if we can have a discussion with him, because
Mm-hmm.
to ask the divisions to get on board and add modules that are contextualized for their regions,
Mhm.
and then they'd be more inclined to want to
Yeah,
participate.
there's something else I want you to understand. We are not equal. There are some divisions that have more convinced leadership than others. Okay? The ones that have leaders that are willing to forge ahead and move forward, go with it. Don't wait for the others. Don't wait for this to become a worldwide requirement. No. Listen, many of the things that happen in the church happen by imitation. They see that it works in one part of the world, and they say, that would work for me too, and then it would happen. Take, for example, satellite evangelism. No one had done satellite evangelism until 1992, 93. It was something unheard of. It was one person that was designated to do it. It was done in one division, and it caught on. So let's not give up. We are here to be creative, to do what we need to do, and to reintroduce this message. I want to say one more thing. When you talk to young people, millennials, and I know I don't need to say this to you, you're talking about postmodern, you're postmodern. You're talking about people that are bombarded with consumerism and humanism and materialism and the rest of it, even though they are sitting in our churches. there. What we can do with them is we're going to have a challenge with that. I guess is what I'm trying to say. The best sermons you can prepare are the ones that are going to be preached to that kind of audience. Make sure you use stories. Stories are the vehicle they understand. I hate to say it this way. If I compare the average Adventist audience in a local church today to the average audience I had in a church 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 40 years ago, people were far more biblical than I see today. Okay? And you do not, in those days, we did not have the competition of a cell phone. A mobile phone is your worst enemy. The moment people go for the cell phone, I'm talking about the congregation sitting in the church, the moment they go for the cell phone, you're done. You are finished. Because that's when that has so much there for them. You would like to believe that. You'd love to believe that. But that I found that is not entirely true. Well, that would be even better. Let's hope for the best. Okay. Yes. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
As you know, the division I serve is really forward-looking on the stewardship story, hence my employment and being here. And I've been at it 1 year and just getting into it, and first year it's get to know people. As I look at the role coming up over the next year, it's going to get more difficult because of the story in the church at the moment. Excuse me. And I feel as though I will go to a significant part of my territory with my hands tied behind my back because of the story in the church at the moment. And I'm not sure how this is. I'm basically making an appeal for resolution.
I know. That appeal is well heard, well accepted. Honestly, folks, I don't know when the resolution will come. We hope it comes soon. That's about all we can say. The other thing is, in your case, and in the case of any other that is under the same influence right now, may I suggest to you never to take stewardship out of the context of righteousness by faith. Okay? You will do your sermons, you will do your messages a favor if you do not remove them from the context of righteousness by faith. Because when you don't, you are preaching a message that everyone needs. And whether it is under the present situation or anything else, just keep it within the context of righteousness by faith. And God will give you the wisdom. Any other comment? Any other question? Yes, Paul.
Just a comment. One of the things that might be surprising was some of the experiments that we used to do.
Yeah.
And we would have a stewardship revival. Another topic, another approach. We investigated different possibilities. What will touch the people? Another one was straight out spiritual crusade for church finance. Now, here's the thing that was different. the meetings were revival. The first thing we did was to go to the very heart of the situations that exist in people's daily lives now. It doesn't matter the generation. And once you find an avenue into their heart, you get into the experience of salvation by faith, grace. In other words, to cut it short, you do soul winning.
Yeah, it
I'm
has
not
to
kidding.
be. It has to be in that context. Yes.
And the thing that we've done from that is we baptize people in that church as a result of those series.
Oh yes.
Now it's just an approach.
Sure.
But we,
It is. In many places that still works very well.
Yeah.
In other places, people feel a little more sophisticated, and you're gonna have to be at your best
that's right.
when you go and talk to them.
Amen.
I'm not kidding you. A great help to me when I had challenges on stewardship was the book of Ecclesiastes. Preaching from the book of Ecclesiastes was extremely valuable. The book of Proverbs, the books of wisdom have been a source of enrichment for stewardship sermons that are written in a context or contextualized to a secular audience. And that's what we are facing in the church. We are facing a secular audience. We are not facing people that come with the book, buy the book, ready to learn the book, okay? We are facing very much a secular audience. We need to teach them how to go into the journey of spiritual growth. And that's what I am trying to paint to you in the few words that I can give you. Don't give up. You are a valued teacher. Don't give up. If you give up, you are going to do a disservice to the church, and you are going to let down many centuries of prophets that taught and spoke when no one actually paid attention to them. Don't give up. Okay? I know that we all feel that we want to see results right away. After all, we come in from a society or societies that we want to see results right away. Trust me, it's not going to be a quick fix. We are patching, we are not patching, we are beginning again a message that has been neglected. So don't give up. Any other comments? I heard your presentation yesterday, Robert. It was very good. I wish they would read your conclusion, just your summary, your executive summary. I've used that several times when I travel. And it is such a revealing piece. Just the executive summary of your study. Fantastic. Thank you.
I have
Yes.
2 comments. First of all, I would like to thank the GC administration for the vision of raising that issue and asking someone to conduct that research, which is being very useful for us. We are basing our strategic plan on it also. And secondly, we would like to thank for that provision that is keeping stewardship directors through all the divisions, and for at least for this quinquennium. So this we hope will be a turning point for stewardship.
It is. It has been already. We are talking about stewardship where before we were not. So that alone is a blessing. Now, I have to admit that in some places, like your place, TED, speaking about stewardship, it's a tough call. Don't give up. And God is going to give you the words, and God is going to give you the skill. It's not going to be you, trust me. What I'm saying to you, I say to myself every day when I walk into this building. It's not me, and it's not my skill. So, don't give up, okay? Yes, ma'am.
I work in Papua New Guinea and a lot of the Pacific Islands, and there's not a lot of material around like there was maybe back in your era of stewardship, of helping development and self-reliance. So I pull out some really old stuff that I've found. But do you know of anywhere we can source some stuff? Because, I mean, you probably know some of the situations we have, particularly in our 10 missions in Papua New Guinea, where we've got to start again with helping them on the development pathway and self-reliance pathway.
I would suggest that you work well with your administration and with the department, and we need to have some, when plans come to us, they need to be cooked. So I don't know of any materials, but I know people that can help you cook those materials.
We are partnering with NL Barb from SID because he has the same concern, and he has this on his strategic plan, and he's preparing materials about that. So we are partnering with them. And it will be available. We believe that we will have something available.
This is the challenge of where we are. We are starting from the bottom. Now, hey, listen, it could be worse. All right? Don't give up. You're doing fine. And believe me, you are in my prayers. I have been to several stewardship councils around the world. One of them was the one in Brazil. Where are you? There you are. In the Central Union in Brazil. Excellent event. We had it at the university, and we had stewardship directors, we had local elders, we had pastors, we had all the conferences within the union, and that union is like a division. And we had, how many people can be sit in that, can be accommodated there? I would say probably a couple, 2,500 people, about 3,000. It was it's a sea of heads when I started to preach on Sabbath morning. I would like to find out if the result of that event or the impact of that event has been measured somehow. What is the result of that? It was a big investment, and I would like to see if that actually has had any results. So when you can, let us know. We go to those places, we do our part, but we don't never know. We're never told what happens. Let me say one more thing. Start with your pastors. Someone was saying to me, and I don't see his face here. He was, you are. He was mentioning, yes, the pastors. They don't really know how to relate to stewardship anymore. That's part of what I first told you. You know, they don't know. They have never experienced it. If you can start with them, I think you would be in connection with the ministerial office. It would be the primary group that you really need to work with. Any other comments? Yes, Penny.
Talking about cooperation between departments, I think that would be an ideal partnership there. And I know we have tried to do some things together with them. But if we could somehow get, I mean, all our articles and resources are online. If we could somehow just get them to regularly refer to those in their ministry magazine, I think we'd start making away to the pastors.
Yeah, I wish we could have events in which, where we can actually join efforts. I like to see administration mixed with departmental councils. I would like to see departments cooperating in an interdisciplinary manner. Those are the things that are going to have an impact in our program. That's what it is. Any other comments? No more questions? Well, yes, sir.
I'll raise the first question, but let me try to get to personals regarding my division, Southern Asia division. We are so happy about the General Conference willing to take a share of our budget, stewardship departmental budget for our division. And my appeal about the publication of in the local language again. If I can appeal to maybe the General Conference that if the division has to put a share on my annual budget, it's going to be very less when it comes to the expense this side. If that can be turned back to my division and the equivalent amount that the General Conference is willing to part to my division be expanded towards the publishing or printing of those vernacular translations, it will do wonders. Because otherwise, if the General Conference says we are going to help you with the departmental directors, a budget for 2.5 years or 3 years, per year you're going to spend only $6,000. That is my budget for the whole year. But if the General Conference can look into another angle, said the division has a budget for me of that amount, but maybe equivalent or little more be expended towards the publication of at least the project that I have. At least six Indian major language and English publication as well, which we don't have even more than 2 copies in our stockroom.
Okay.
And if that can be given a little thought to, it will be something that we can achieve.
Let me give you a hint, and this goes for all of you in the divisions. It is a little it's a little difficult for us at the General Conference to initiate programs. It is better, it works better when it comes to us, it is brought to us by the division officers, because they do have an interest in the program. They have done their share and they still need help. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? If they have bought into the program and they have done their part and they are still needing help, we will do everything we can to see if we can help. What we cannot do is just simply initiate it from here, because then it doesn't work. The weight is all on us, and it wouldn't be right. But I understand the situation.
Because I voice the same thing to my division every committee. Still it doesn't work. That's why at least if something can be done.
What can we do? Marcos, can you talk to the division president? That's what has to happen. Then they need to pay attention. Listen, don't blame your presidents. Your presidents are extremely busy.
I know.
They have multiple things, many of them extremely heavy. Don't think for a moment that they are just wasting time. It's simply that they have too many things to do, and it's hard for them to prioritize properly.
Right.
But that's what it is. Any other comments? I see a question in your face, Robert.
it's a very impertinent question, and I was telling myself not to ask this question, but you asked me. How does it affect the General Conference budget with the North American division moving out? As I say, it's most impertinent. I decided I should ask you in the corridor.
No questions. We have already presented a report to the executive committee about that. Yes, it hurts us in the tone of about operationally about $1.2 million a year. Those are overhead costs that cannot be passed on, so we have to eat them. And that's $1.2 million that cannot be used for anything else. Now if you look at our budget for next year, our budget is balanced because we are using reserves. Reserves we accumulated over a period of time, balanced with an allocation of $12 million. That's how it is balanced. Now you can say, well, why do you balance the budget that way? Why don't you get rid of people? Okay, let's start. How many from stewardship will go? How many from Sabbath school will go? And you have to also understand that the decline in currency values occurred right after San Antonio. Up until San Antonio is one thing, and it was like the switch was turned off. And after San Antonio, in August of 2015, the entire picture changed. The Brazilian real went down, the Mexican peso went down. Everything that could actually bring some money here went down. We actually in 2015, because we gave many appropriations up until San Antonio, before San Antonio, we actually had a decline or a reduction to fund balance of $22 million. We closed the spigot, and by the end of 2016, we ended up with a positive $1 million. That's a turnaround of 23. Wow. At this time, I will be glad, I'll be lucky, and I will be delighted if I break even in 2017. In 2018, it's going to be a challenge because I no longer have the funds from NAD, and I will have to see how the market in general, the currency market works. What could we have done? Here you go to the General Conference session. You go to the nominating committee. The nominating committee brings all these people from different divisions to staff the church at this level. And when you do, then you discover 3 months later that the market is really tanking out, that the whole thing is changing. Okay, what do we do? Do we tell these people that were elected 3 months before, no, you need to go back home? You need to go back to your old jobs. There are no old jobs. You need to, we can't have you here. So the best we are doing is we are trying to concentrate on the essentials and live with what we have. I'm hoping sincerely that the situation can turn around. Now, we are in a plan with North America for tithe sharing, that is the reduction until the year 2020. That means every year when I write my budget, I count on less and less and less income. That's not a good recipe for happiness, but it's reality. They need it, and we're glad to share it, participate in tithe sharing like that. But the truth is, if things don't turn around, what recourse do we have? We're going to have to counsel the nominating committee that some positions will not be able to be filled. Do we want to get there? No. Will we be responsible if we don't do that? No. But that's not a bridge we are going to cross before we have to get there. We are sure that the Lord is still guiding. And this effort of resuscitating stewardship is precisely and I believe me, when we started with the initiative of paying for the salaries and the travel budget for the stewardship directors, we had no knowledge that the currencies had gone down. Nothing yet. We did this without knowing of what was happening. So, should we say the good Lord was guiding us? I believe so. I believe so. Now, don't be discouraged. I'm not. Every time when I walk into this building, I ask the Lord to give me wisdom and to guide all of us into what we need to do. God is gonna be the one providing, and it will be done because it belongs to God. Okay? Any other comments? If not, yes.
It seems that
Yes, ma'am.
while we focus on teaching people about stewardship, that and it sounds, I've picked up lots of clues from you that admin around the world are looking to live within their means and restructure the organisation and get back to basics. We've got a model where our North New Zealand conference have exited out of a large conference office, purchased a small facility in a main street with their ABC store on the bottom. Upstairs is a meeting room and some workstations for their treasury. Their president has named himself the lead pastor of the conference, and they now use 77% of tithe in the field. And they're, I guess, providing for us a model of what it means to lean up, go lean, go agile. They still tick off the conference, the constitutions and the processes and policies, but they do it from a very lean model. And the church there has responded, the constituency have responded very excitedly to this more movement focus, this role model that they're giving. And it seems that story needs to be told and replicated around the world. But we've become obsessed with buildings and facilities at a time when we actually need to be exiting out of real estate and downsizing our debt. And we've got members hearing things like the South Queensland Conference purchased a $10 million building out of reserves, and in the same meeting said that they didn't have money to do church planting. And it just sends mixed messages to our members. And so, yeah, we're looking forward to more role modelling of a church that's committed to downsizing its overheads without downsizing people.
That's an excellent speech. Yep. Any other comments?
Can you send us an article, Christina? I've always felt that stewardship ministries should somehow model what we're teaching. I don't know if there's a project we can do, something that we can tithe our budget or do that second tithe thing that we were talking about and help somebody, just as an example, just to set an example. I think it would be quite powerful in the field.
Well, maybe in time we'll get to that. I would like to still share something with you so that we have something that we can think of tonight, especially you yourselves when you go home. Are you ready for that? Okay, don't think you're going to have a Sabbath sermon here now. Okay, that's not what it is. Okay? Let us bow our heads. Thank you, Father, for giving us the opportunity to share with each other, to listen to each other, and to open the Word to understand that you are the omniscient and all-powerful God. You are the creator. You are the owner. You are the Lord of our lives. So we give ourselves to you anew again, and we ask that your Spirit will guide us as we share now from your word. In Jesus' name, amen. I want to share with you some things, and I had a terrible time putting this thing together. It was not an easy exercise, but it is something that I want to share with you simply because it has been the subject that has taken most of my time. I spent a lot of time talking about finance, leadership, and my doctoral work is in leadership development. So I do treasury because I am a financial guy, and I have done that for better part of 48 years. So it's not that finance is being forgotten. It's simply that now I have been able to put a framework to it. And in looking at and rediscovering my own life, I have gone back to certain issues in order to find out how do I now relate to them. So I'm going to share with you some of this. And by the way, the title that you see is not mine. It's a book. You can find it. It's called The Three Phases of Leadership. The adaptation of the concepts is entirely mine. But the concept of what leadership involves, that comes from this book. You're welcome to find out if you can buy it before you go, if it is important to you. Now, what I'm going to share with you are my own reflections on this. And my reflections are basically based on my own personal study. So you can take it or you can leave it. Doesn't make any, you don't offend me. Okay? So I'll share them with you simply because they are valuable to me, not because you really necessarily probably need them. Okay, let's see if this works. The title is The Three Phases of Leadership. What makes a leader? And by the way, the reason why I'm choosing this is because I look at stewardship at an intersection with leadership. Okay? It is, to me, is crucial that I understand leadership as a stewardship concept. What makes a leader able to offer effective service? Consider then the three phases of leadership, and these are the three phases that this book teaches. A leader is a manager, is an artist, and is also a priest. Now, a priest, not necessarily an Adventist pastor, not necessarily a Catholic priest, not necessarily a Hindu priest. No. The idea of priesthood is very interesting because it really encapsulates the values, both ethical and moral, that a leader needs to have. That's what the book teaches. For us, being a priest is more than that, of course. And that's why this concept is interesting to me, because it actually depicts what a leader in the church is or should be. So if you allow me, I will try and explain this a little bit. Now, it is 4:45. Is it okay if we go 5:15, half an hour? Okay, that's okay. We can do something. These are the key aspects of leadership. When you're talking about managers, you're talking about people that have skills and abilities. Management is about coping with complexity. Leadership is, by contrast, it's about coping with change. And the second phase is an artist. And that has to do with relationships, it has to do with working with people. Now, if you're a manager, you have to imagine now that there are 3 boxes here, okay? There's one box there, there's one box here, there's going to be another box here. So that's the box of the manager. He's wrapped around that, and we will define that. Here's the box of the artist, and we will talk about that. The aesthetical part. And then there's the other one, that is the box or the area for the priest that has to do with vision and character. What am I saying? What I am saying is that a leader is a combination of all 3 of them. A leader is a manager. A leader is also an artist. And a leader is also a priest. Now, keep in mind that the guy who wrote this book is not religious at all. He is not writing with a religious bent in any way. But it really plays it to our hand. I've done my reflections going deeper. And I'm inserting here a few slides that have to do with presentations that I have done before. I don't know if I don't remember if I presented this to you. It has to do with something I did on the sanctuary when I was talking about the throne of God, the center of power and authority that offers to us a metaphor about leadership. Now, it's interesting when you talk about the Ark of the Covenant, that this is the place where you finally get to where God is in the sanctuary. You enter through the east, you go all the way to the west, you go through the light and the bread and the incense, and you part the veil, and you finally get to the west side, and that's where this ark is, which is simply a wooden box that is covered with in an ornate manner with gold inside and out, with 2 beautiful cherubims on top. And you have a lot of activity taking place both in the atrium and in the holy place. You have to maintain the water, you have to clean the water, you have to change the sacrifice, you have to clear up the burnt animal and kill another one and put another one there to burn. And then you go inside the holy place, and you have to maintain the lights, you have to change the bread, you have to keep the incense going. All of that you have to do. But when you part the veil and you go into the most holy place, there's nothing to maintain. Everything is already done. Peace and quiet. Silence. What is interesting is that in the Ark of the Covenant, which is a symbol of the throne of God, you find the 3 elements. And this is Hebrews 9:4. That refers to us that inside there were 3 pieces: the tables of the law, the golden urn of manna, where there was from the first time manna fell down, or rain. And then you also have a big lesson there, because that chapter 16, verse 36 of the book of Exodus ends with a reference. The reference is that an omer is 1/10 of an ephah. That's what it says in the last version of the text of the chapter. So Moses was not actually talking about food for the health part of the food eating. He was talking about giving. So, and then you also had the rod of Aaron, which you know the story because in the book of Numbers, chapter 16, you find that that story is the designation of legitimate leadership. So, here you are, all three pieces in there, all three of them together. Now, this is what's one of my conclusions when I wrote this and I made that presentation. Number one, leadership is a form of stewardship. Why do I say that? The rod is the symbol of leadership. Let me say that when you look at all three symbols carefully, you realize that there is a message when you look at all three of them together. When the believer comes trying to know the will of God, ready to obey the word of God, the power of God is available. Now you have to understand that that rod is more than just leadership. It is life, because it was a resurrection. The Lord brought life to that dead piece of wood. Now, the omnipotent and omniscient Lord of the universe is with his obedient people. That's the point at the end. Now, when you continue looking at the throne, you have several visions. You have Ezekiel, you have Revelation 4, you have Isaiah 6, and you have Daniel 7. We don't have time for all of them. We don't have time to do justice to not even one of them. But if you open your Bible with me to the book of Ezekiel, you find an interesting description of what the activity in the throne of God is. See, remember this. I mentioned to you the activity in the sanctuary is basically only once a year in the most holy place. And it's only when the high priest goes in. There's no more activity. But in the book of Ezekiel, you find that there is activity. There is activity. And if you go there, you read, and I believe we can find it in chapter 1 of Ezekiel, verse 4, to the end of the chapter, that there is a whirlwind that was coming out of the north with a great cloud and with raging fire engulfing itself and brightness all around it and radiating out mist of its midst like the color amber out of the mist of fire. This is the kind of thing that you don't know how to write about. Quite frankly, I don't know how you write about what you see when you see some things like this. I think words don't go far enough. But then it's even more than that. Verse 5, also from within it came a likeness of 4 living creatures. That is even more astonishing. 4 living creatures. Now, this is what actually, in the light of the 3 phases of leadership, this is what caught my attention. Okay? Am I cheating when I am showing more than one face as a leader? Here you have 4 living creatures. And you know what the Bible says about them? And it was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. Each one had 4 faces, and each one had 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and their soles of their feet were like the soles of the calves' feet. They sparkled like the color of burnished bronze. The hands of a man were under their wings, of their 4 sides. So each creature had 4 sides. I'm describing something I've never seen, okay? And each of the four had faces and wings. Their wings touch one another, and blah, blah, blah. And verse 10, look at this. Oh, no. Let's not skip that. Verse 9, the creatures did not turn when they went, but each one went straight forward. Don't miss that. That's important. Verse 10, as for the likeness of their faces, each had the face of a man. Each of the four had the face of a lion. And on the right side, each of the four had the face of an ox. And on the left side, each of the four had the face of an eagle. Thus were their faces. That's an awesome thing to see, don't you think? 4 faces. Face of a man, the face of an ox, face of an eagle, the face of a lion. What are these 4 faces? And why are they described as such? If you read the whole chapter, you will find one thing. It doesn't describe God. Doesn't say anything about God. The only thing it says, and you will find it further in verse 26, is that above the firmament, it says above, beyond, okay? Not within the creative part of it, or I don't know, above the firmament. Over their heads was the likeness of a throne, in appearance like the sapphire stone. On the likeness of the throne was a likeness like the appearance of a man high above it. So apparently the Lord is sitting there and he looks like a man. It looks like a man. He looks like a man. So here we have a fantastic scene. But the purpose is not to describe God, other than to say that he looks like a man. What is interesting is that it is describing these 4 creatures having 4 faces. Beyond that, there's another piece of description, and that is, and you will find that in verse 11, it says, thus were their faces, their wings stretched upward, 2 wings, blah, blah, blah. And verse 12, and each one went straight forward. Again, the same expression. They go straight forward. Okay? Don't miss that. And it keeps saying, they went wherever the Spirit wanted to go. So now we're talking about the Spirit. Now we talk about the one sitting in the above, beyond, in the firmament. And these 4 that are created beings are connected with the activity of the Spirit. So where the Spirit says, you go, they go. As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance, I'm reading verse 13, was like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of torches going back and forth. Among the living creatures, the fire was bright, and out of the fire went lightning, and the living creatures ran back and forth. Again, almost the same expression. Ran back and forth in appearance like a flash of lightning. Now, what does this have to do with stewardship? I'll show you. And the living creatures ran back and forth. Verse 15 says, now as I looked at the living creatures, behold, a wheel was on the earth beside each living creature with 4 faces, with its 4 faces. The appearance of the wheels. And then describes the wheels like full of ice, and wheel within a wheel. And when they move, the creatures move immediately. It's like saying they are created, they are there to do what the Spirit says they should do. Move fast, right away. Does it sound like when Daniel was praying and he was praying for the revelation of or the interpretation of the 2300 days and the 70 weeks annual, and he's praying and crying and fasting and all of that, and when he's doing that and he wakes, he opens his eyes, there is an angel there, just like that. So it quickly came. It is said here in more than one verse, repeatedly. Verse 19, when the living creatures went, the wheels went. When the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. In other words, the Spirit does something, they do it. They're totally connected with Him. And then, wherever the Spirit wanted to go, they went. Verse 20. That's the purpose of the chapter. The purpose of the chapter is not to describe four faces. It's to describe basically that where the Spirit wanted them to go, they went. And the wheels were lifted together with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. And then keeps saying it repeatedly. It's like, I don't know, maybe this is written in poetry. But it repeats itself several times, the same concept. And again, I heard the noise and keep saying, okay, if you go to the last verse, like the appearance of a rainbow in a cloud, finally, on a rainy day, was the appearance of the brightness around it. So it's a big thing. Faces. Four faces. It's interesting how artists can try to describe this. You have the face of a man. You have the face of an ox. You have the face of an eagle. You have the face of a lion. You know, and what's interesting is these creatures, if I am going to follow a little bit of what I understand from Scripture, cherubims are close to the throne of God. They're looking at God all the time. So what they reflect, when I like to believe that what they show themselves like is like how God was, how God is. Have you read statements in early writings from Ellen White when she says that, there were times when Lucifer came out of the presence of God, and the angels saw him, and they bowed to him. He radiated the glory of God. It was, and you keep reading about the presence of how beautiful Lucifer was. The problem was that he believed that was all his. It was an amazing sight. How do we describe these things? And what does it mean? Artists can go in all kinds of directions trying to describe this. For me, these are my reflections. The faces are aspects of character, reflect dimensions of service, resemble the one they serve. They are stewards, servants, managers. They are guided by the Spirit. They move decidedly, effectively, and efficiently. They live to do the will of God. Now, what's interesting is that these are not creatures that are created as a robot. So they are not created like without intelligence. They are far more intelligent than you and I are. What is fascinating is that they do what God says they should do immediately. Have you ever read in Jeremiah chapter 32, verses 39 and 40, the expression of the prophet when he says, I will give you one heart and one mind. I'll give you one heart and one mind. That is, you will have no conflict between your feelings and sentiments and emotions and thoughts with the direction that I want you to go. I would like to believe, my dear friends, that these creatures are there to fulfill the will of God as soon as He even thinks about it, if possible. Here is, and what is fascinating is that when you read in the book of Daniel, and it says, that this angel appears, the angel appears saying, I was busy with the king of Persia. You remember that? I was busy fighting for the last 10 days with the king of Persia. That tells you what kind of confrontation it was, because these creatures are not just anything. The four living creatures with the likeness of a man, with four sides and four faces, and the likeness of their faces was like the face of a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle, represent what they see in God. What do they see there? Well, I'm going to jump ahead. They see the sensitivity of a man. They also see the braveness and the irreducibility of a lion. I was in Africa not that long ago, and I went to a reserve where they had a lion that is actually a lioness, two actually, a lion and a lioness. She is a 5-year-old, he is a 7-year-old, but let me tell you, those two creatures are magnificent. And if you give them food, they will take it from your hand. And I couldn't believe it. And the gentleman who was with us said, why just go ahead and feed him. And I took that piece of meat and I put it, he said, put it high on there's a, what do you call it? A fence. Put it high. And when that animal actually stretched itself, the paws were here and there, and the head was way up there. So I'm feeding him like this. It was incredible, fascinating, exhilarating. Especially the woman, the female. She would eat it, and then she would look at you in the eye with those very penetrating eyes. And if she liked you, she would actually be rubbing herself against the fence so that you would come and touch her. And I did that. She liked me. Why am I saying that? Here it is. These creatures are resembling God, and God has the face of a man and the braveness of a lion. I have an idea of what a lion looks like. I don't want to be with a lion or without the fence between us. Humble as an ox is more than humility, is sacrifice. The ox is an animal of sacrifice. an animal that works until he dies. And when he dies, his body is food. Are you getting the message that I'm trying to convey to you? You don't have to believe me, okay? But then there's the visionary, far-reaching eye of the eagle. This is a fantastic animal because it dwells in the high, in the high points of the earth, and flies around and can see in detail what's happening. But it's not just looking, not all the time, but it comes down. I believe that God has the eye of the eagle. He can see everything, and He chooses when to intervene, and when He does, believe me, you're not going to be matched for Him. Why am I saying these things? Here it is. A combination, the animals or the creatures, the one sitting in the firmament, and finally the one below as represented by the eyes. I like to believe that this represents the connection of divinity with humanity through church service. And that led me to think of what is the gift of the Spirit of administration and leadership that these creatures have. They move, they go forward, they act. Yes, I like to believe too that the gift of administration and leadership is present in the church. The selection and ordination of the 7 deacons biblically tells us that it was in the apostolic church. And Stephen was the leader, a manager, an artist, and a priest. And you can read this in the book of Acts, chapter 6 and chapter 7. And you find also that he had the ability to organize, to plan, to implement, to keep track of various duties, to help those who were involved in the organizational structure of the church, to probably, he was probably a strategic thinker. Definitely they had developed and improved on leadership skills. And they were able to manage people, projects, finances, information, and stay on task. That is management. To help others accomplish their task, to set and meet objective goals. They were willing to learn new technologies, excellent skills to work with customers and colleagues. That is the reason why they were elected. We need to serve the widows. And I want to describe to you what a manager is. A manager's description is that he is rational. Don't forget that. The core competence is he's a planner, an organizer, a supervisor, a controller, and an evaluator. The currency is authority and intellect. The goal is to operate and operate efficiently. And the key word is rationality. The artist in the leader is the creative part, is the core competency is he's a developer. He's independent. He's a storyteller. He's a self-reflective, self-aware. The currency of this person is relationship, innovation. The goal is to facilitate, and the key word is creativity. Now, remember the 3 boxes I told you? If you're only a manager, you are there. You need to migrate over to the 2nd box. But then there's a 3rd box. And this is the priest, and I want to leave that to your imagination now, is the description that this is the inspirer. This is the core competence is the values, the principles, the vision, and the passion, the purpose, and trust. That's what this individual deals with. The currency is character. The goal is to motivate, and the key word is to inspire. Now, let's talk about leadership, and let's see how that connects with stewardship. Remember what I said to you? Leadership is what? A form of stewardship. A balanced leader needs to have management, artistry, and priesthood. All three. If you're only artist and priest, and you have nothing of management, you're a recipe for a disaster. Okay? That's how bankruptcies occur. If you have a strong managerial base, but you don't have any ability to be an artist and work with people, be creative and find solutions. If you are only the manager, I would like to say to you, you're a recipe to be fired. You're not going to last. And if you do not have the artistry and the priesthood part, yes, I know how your financial statement looks. It looks great. You actually like to keep the money because you are not willing to put it to work for the work of the church. You understand the balance that is involved in these three phases of leadership? You cannot be just one-sided. Now, can we convey that message to our pastors? Can we convey this message to our administrators? Can we convey this message to our people? Can they be more than what they are now? What model of leadership is what they are actually living? I'm afraid, my friends, that our people, our leaders, are living based on models that they have learned not in the church. I'll give you an example. Leaders, presidents. I respect presidents. I have had 11 of them. Some better than others. I would like to say to you, my dear friends, that one of the most confusing functions in the church is the function of the president. In fact, we assume that the president is the chief executive officer. There is not such a thing in the policy book. The only expression that is used in the policy book is the first officer. That's all. It is basically the same as to if you use the model of the local church, where you have a number of elders, and one of them is designated as the first elder. He takes some lead functions, but they are all elders. Are you following what I'm saying? If you break this thing down, okay? If you really break this thing down, you're going to find some interesting situations we have and that we have to live with. Because many people come into administration and into leadership with misconceived how do you say that in English? With false conceptions. May I suggest to you, stewardship directors, that one of your functions be also The study of leadership, the study of management, the study of how to work together, because you're going to have to teach that when you are putting together a program that the church can use to move forward. Otherwise, they don't know how. I think I'll just conclude by saying, if I have challenged you today, I have succeeded. A leader is a manager, is an artist, and is a priest. No apologies. Take all three. Develop all three. God bless you.